Well, hello and welcome to the Excel in Retirement Podcast, where we help good people make wise financial decisions so that they can excel in retirement. I'm your host, Andy Traub, alongside your guide, as always, David Treese. So, David, we are having elections right now. There was election results last night for primaries. We're all in the middle of that, and the political temperature in the country is boiling. I feel like it's been boiling for a decade. I don't know how long it's been boiling, but there's one side wins, the other side wins. There's a sway this way and a swing this way, and there's a lot of noise in that. And today we're going to talk about how the market responds to political parties and elections, and how that can affect those who are listening, those who have money in the market. Some really interesting stats we're going to talk about today, backed up by some historical research. And then we're going to end up with, the goal of being able to navigate these things. How can you navigate them? And how can you feel good about these political wins, because they change and they go one way or the other. So thanks for guiding us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I don't know about you, man, but I go in and out of being completely burnt out on that stuff to being outraged. And it's like there's no in between where it feels like it should be. You're just either really mad or just outraged or just
Yeah. And then there's just indifferent and tired. You just go like, I can't keep up with this. And then, I watch a movie and I realize, or I think that, what is the truth even? I mean, it's,
yeah.
am I outraged about a lie? Am I outraged about the truth? I don't even know,
Right. I think what we fail to think about a lot of times is we have an emotional budget too. We not only have a financial budget, we have an emotional budget. It's like, how much of your emotions can you allocate to this thing to be outraged about today?
Yeah. 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 It's don't put all of your emotional eggs in a basket that you have no control over, right? So something that's interesting is researching in our research we've done in preparation for today, and I wonder in today's economy marketplace, if you polled people and you said, has the market done better under Democratic presidents or Republican presidents? What do you think people would say?
Most people would probably tell you they've done better under a Republican.
Right. And that's part of the Republican spin, I think, is to say, we're more friendly towards, the market. And that's something they sort of sell themselves on. So since 1926, and links to all these resources, or not resources, to these references are in the show notes. But since 1926, S&P 500 has averaged a 14.8% return with Democratic presidents, compared to 9.3% under Republican presidents. And that's from Fidelity Investments Historical Market Analysis. And what's interesting about that is, one, that it's grown over time, which is great. But here's another one that I think is interesting. If you have a Democratic president and a divided Congress, that they've done between 13 and 16.6%, the market has. And that when you have a one-party dominance, it's about 14%. And so really the worst one is just a Republican president, which is really interesting. And part of this is because we have a small window that we sort of think about. Can you remember or realize or think about a time when you really thought, this politician is going to help the market, and the market didn't respond accordingly? Or does it always feel like a Wild West?
It kind of always feels like a Wild West. And I guess the other thing too is we're all flawed human beings. And I think in our country, we put so much energy towards thinking that a politician is going to fix a problem. And regardless of their party, in my opinion, they all tend to disappoint, is what it is. And to a degree, you got to think, especially as the president, you got a lot of pressure on you. And so there's a lot of people to let down, and it's a lot easier to let people down. But I mean, I guess when going back over a decade to when Mitt Romney was running for president, and all the promises that he made, and how that did not work out, that kind of like soiled me on putting faith in politicians after that, because I felt like he was a pretty big letdown. But Yeah, so you've got to focus on what your blessings are today. I think there's a lot to feel negative about in the world today, and Zig Ziglar used to say that encouragement is the hope on which fuel runs. And so we've got to think about the things that we can encourage ourselves with, and we have an awesome birthright as Americans, and I think we still have a lot to be thankful for, and to not focus too heavily on things outside of our control.
Yeah. That last part I want to touch on, not focus too heavily on things we can't control. We don't control the stock market. I mean, it's interesting that they talk about the market like it's a thing, like it has a personality, and yet it's an inanimate object that even the reality of what is the stock market, it is people's belief in companies, and it's not, they're not betting, but they kind of are, right? It's and none, it's these real people doing real things. But why did it go up 4% today? Sometimes we don't know. Why did it go
Yeah,
down 4%? Sometimes we don't know. It's a little mysterious. But what, as an advisor, what has your experience been around, um, when things? What is the market not like when it comes to politicians?
yeah. I would say though the thing that makes it not betting, and that's a common thing to say about the market, is that it feels like it's betting. What makes it not betting is you own something tangible, and you own a piece of property. And I guess if we were really thinking about what drives the price at any given day, someone was willing or unwilling to give a certain price for that asset that you have. Uh, and so I guess that's where the price comes in, but it does feel whimsical from day to day, when I guess it's because people are fickle, and we are fickle as human beings. And so what we will give for one thing one day is different the next day. But the thing that the market tends to like is when there's not one party in power and there's a split majority. Everybody wants their party to be in full control or whatnot. But the reason that the stock market tends to like split majorities is because the market is trying to price in what the cost of things will be. Like a company is forecasting what the cost to do business is. Home Depot on their earnings call is going to forecast what they expect it will cost in employee cost and light cost and all their operational cost. And when policy can change swiftly, like when a party controls the Senate and the House and the presidency, things can shift very quickly. The market tends to not like that because it can't price in ahead of time what those costs may be.
So I feel like what you're saying is the market likes balance. They like reality. They don't like, someone to take it and say, no, I promise this is going to happen. And what they really want is they want to see tangible profits, and they want to see predictable, like how much inventory do you have? Okay, you have inventory. Now you can price it, versus sort of hopes and dreams and promises and words.
Yes.
Um, and I think the market doesn't like political things a lot, because politicians can just make big promises and say they're going to do things. While meanwhile, the market's like, no, you need to be profitable, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah.
want to reward reality, not promises.
Right. Something tangible and something to show for the value that they're asking for it, or what it's asking for it.
Another way to think about this is if the market had a company that was run like the government, the market wouldn't like that company very much,
Or it would have been
because
taken.
it's not profitable, right?
Right, right. Not at all. Nobody no company or no household could run how our government runs. It is insane.
Yeah. So, the market doesn't like political extremes, it seems. It doesn't like, it also doesn't like the uncertainty of impeachment.
Yes.
That's, also another part of it. Uh, and again, the issues you need to deal with as an advisor are, then how do you help your clients weather that, right?
Yeah.
How do you help your clients live in a world where, we've had a majority Republican, uh, dominance for, at least 2 years. Right now, we're living in that. But how, if it switches, if you go the other direction, if you have clients who are worried or want guidance on, David, how do I navigate all this political up and down, right and left? What do you tell them?
I think our messaging might be more pertinent now than it has been, because we want to, because volatility is going to be here. I mean, all the predictions and so forth are, this isn't going any away, and this divisiveness that is dividing our country right now. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of resolution or anyone on a national level that can speak to that and calm tensions. And so what that means is that there's going to continue to be volatility, I believe, for the foreseeable future. And so our message for folks that are close to retirement or they're in retirement is, we want to be downside focused first and understand what our risk is and understand what our risk tolerance is, and then perhaps be a little more conservative if we're in retirement or we're 5 years out from retirement, because we're ultimately trying to potentially use that money that we've saved for retirement to supplement Social Security and whatnot. And so we want to not have our funds, or at least all of them, subject to volatility or the whims of what the Federal Reserve Chair or the president or a congressman or whoever says from day to day. We want to have more security if we can, and that's our goal.
Yeah, and so as we think about, the way that the economy is going now, um, from a larger perspective, there's this thing called the K-shaped economy.
Yep.
And essentially what that means is a separation and a further separation between those who have and those who don't have as much. Um, if you ask 10 people on the street, finish this sentence, the rich get, most people would say richer, right? And that's kind of the way it's going in a lot of ways. So as someone who wants to help people who have wealth gain more wealth, but also has a heart for people who are struggling to get on track, um, talk to me about why it can be difficult for the average consumer to turn things around financially when their largest expenditures are things like vehicles or even trying to buy a home right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got to develop a discipline of saving. I mean, that's huge, with being able to have a long-term solvency and being able to right our ship and to have as much security as we can. The problem with this K-shaped economy is that wedge drives deeper and deeper between the haves and the have-nots. And I can't profess to know all the answers to what to do about that, but I will say that your income is your biggest asset of growing your net worth. And so developing skill sets and developing an ability to say yes to work is huge with helping you get ahead in life. And just being willing to show up and do the hard work is really what it is, and having a good attitude while you're doing it. I think people that go to work every day and they try to essentially work themselves out of a job because they're working so hard. I think that they're going to be most suited to be okay when AI comes for their job. We just heard of a neighbor down the street that just bought a new house. They bought a new house in our same neighborhood. They lived at another place in our neighborhood, and they just bought a new house. And the guy was AI'd out of his job, some sort of computer analyst type job. And so I think those things are a real reality, and there's a lot of fear about that. But I think just being a person that is dependable and being someone that is trustworthy and willing to pivot is going to be huge for helping people not succumb to that and to be able to get ahead in all the changes that we're surely going to have over the next 5 to 10 years. As far as people that have already accumulated some wealth, I think it's just having a thought out plan and really projecting out over the next 5, 10 years. And, it's really hard. I was just talking to my wife, Mallory, about this. And sometimes I'm trying to plan for people 10 years out when it comes to retirement. And I don't know about you, man, but it's like hard to think beyond a year or 3 years about what we're going to be doing.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that can be a challenge. And so maybe just bringing it into a 3-year time frame would be appropriate for a lot of folks. But yeah, just knowing what your options are, whether you have money or not, I think what everyone deserves is to know what their options are. And we are willing to be a resource for folks to help them understand what their options are.
Yeah. We see things like there was a report from Delta, the airline, that their premium seating jumped 9% while
Mm,
their basic economy dropped.
yes.
Less people being able to afford basic, more people being able to afford, um, the higher end, or that consumer prices have jumped 25% since 2020. Food prices up 29%. That's from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so the real basic things, which is transportation and eating, getting places and sustaining yourself day to day, have gone up tremendously. We were talking pre-show about the weight of car loans. The average car loan now on a new car is $730,
Wow.
$729,
A mortgage.
and how difficult it can be when so much of someone's income is going to that to something that is not gaining value.
Right.
I don't love having a mortgage, but I don't. It doesn't hurt as much when I know that I'm currently way up if I ever had to release this asset that I'm living in, right?
Yes. Yes.
So as an advisor, if someone is doing well, and they want to continue to do well, um, what's something maybe they could find in this given economy we talked about politically, that if they wanted to have, what would be our message to someone, your message, if they wanted to have more peace of mind? What do you believe they need to have if they want to have a chance at having a peace of mind about, I'm doing okay, but I want to continue to do okay? What's the
Right.
path?
I mean, I think the recipe for that is reviewing your finances at least once a year to review that and to make sure that everything is on track. Really, when we get beyond a year, we're depending on hope, in my view, and we're hoping that we're okay and we want to know. And so, if we can be proactive, hopefully we can be less reactive when it comes to finding problems or potential opportunities that we have. And so that's huge. I would say just sitting down and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just sitting down and looking at what you have and making sure that those allocations are appropriate for the next year, and reviewing that and having some idea of what is going on with your taxes and your accounts and so forth, and not just letting it ride.
Right, right.
It's not something that's always fun, but if you were in the discipline of doing that, it becomes easier and easier to do
Yeah.
for a lot of
I,
people.
I I think of that though, like we're so grateful that we have this modern technology of, check engine lights. Imagine if your car didn't have any of those indicators and it was
Right.
just one day smoke started coming out. Like it's good, but I know people, I had friends in college, and the way they've fixed their car was to take black electrical tape and put it over their check engine light indicator.
Yeah.
Literally had a friend do this. I was like, why is there all tape on your car, on your dash? It's like, there's all these lights,
It's
right?
crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Now his reality was he didn't look at it because he knew it was broken. But a lot of people, it's not broken necessarily. So many of your clients are doing very well, but it's just not. A lot of people have been raised that talking about money is never enjoyable. Well, that's not necessarily true, right? But they get in this habit of not looking. Let me end our conversation with this, and it's going to take a couple more minutes if you'd like. But when you talk about someone's plan, where do you? Let's say they're moving from another advisor to you, and you're like, "Hey, I've got money in different places, and we have our goals and stuff." But where do you begin if you're going to help someone build a plan? Where do you start?
Yeah, where we start at is just understanding. It depends on their age, but we want to understand what they're saving, and if they're closer to retirement, we're going to start with what Social Security is going to provide for them, and then we
Hmm.
just start with their income and what they're bringing in, and what they're actually netting into their bank account every month, and then we're looking at what big expenses they have, whether that's taxes or healthcare costs or home maintenance or vacations or vehicles or whatever. And then we're going to talk about what if they are helping anybody else out financially, if they have any ongoing obligations to a family member or something like that, helping kids out or parents out or loan loss nephew or something like that, or alimony even. And then we're going to talk about any property they might have. And then we're going to talk about estate planning and figure out if they've ever drafted a will or a trust or powers of attorney and talk through that. And then we're going to start getting into how they're feeling about the market. And this can be wide ranging. Some people are relentlessly optimistic, and some people are always a skeptic. And then there's some people that they don't really know. And so we talk about that. So it helps me understand them really and their sentiment and how they respond to news and things like that. And then we get into the accounts and looking at how they're allocated and so forth. And then just looking at their beneficiaries. And then from there, we're going to figure out if legacy planning and leaving an inheritance to kids or institutions is important to them. And then we're going to figure out, this is what I always end with in that first meeting, is if we were fast forwarding 5 years into the future and we were sitting down here together, what needs to happen in your life from a financial standpoint for you to feel like it was a successful 5 years? And they basically, a lot of times people will list their goals of what they want to do over the next 5 years. And that's always encouraging. We just took a new client on recently, and this is always really fun, but he felt excited after we put together a plan for him of what he could do. He's about a year and a half, 2 years out from retirement, and he
Yeah.
felt really excited knowing what his options are and so forth. And so that's always really encouraging that people feel hopeful, because that's really what we're trying to do, is create hope and encouragement and let people know what their options are and what they can do to best navigate the years ahead.
Yeah. And I think it's just having a place to talk about these things, even a place to talk about the political landscape, because I know that I've had conversations with people. I'm not an advisor, but, where people are really worried about, what if gas hits $6? Or, I mean, or what happens if this person gets elected? What's going to happen to America? And what's happening to this person if it gets elected? What's going to happen to America? And that's why there's a lot of people with basements full of food, right?
Right.
And sometimes people call those people crazy, and sometimes people call them and say, "Can I come over? Because you have a lot of food," And so it just depends on what the sort of political climate is. But the
Yes.
advantage of having an advisor like you is that you have someone you can call at any time about the big plans or even the smaller decisions sometimes, and just be neutral, and say, let's hear about the emotions, but let's also make a rational decision, and let's make a plan, and then let's follow the plan. And I think that's really the power of working with you. And I want to encourage people that if they're not, to reach out to you. I'm going to put an email where you can reach David, and also a link to get his weekly newsletter. That will be in the show notes, and you can just click on there and navigate and reach out to him when you have questions. And I know that, especially if you're not working with him, he would love to hear from you, and see how he can help you navigate your future. So, David, as always, thanks for your time. We appreciate your wisdom, and we trust that today has been helpful to everyone who's listened.
Thank you, Andy. Have a good one.
Investment advisory services offered through Creative One Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Clients excel in Creative One Wealth or unaffiliated entities. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by any government agency and do not provide tax or legal advice. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss. Licensed insurance professional. Insurance and annuity products are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Investment advisory services are provided in accordance with a fiduciary duty of care and loyalty that includes putting your interests first and disclosing conflicts. Insurance services have a best interest standard, which requires recommendations to be in your best interest. Advisors may receive commission for the sale of insurance and annuity products.